Hi everybody, my name's Darcy Gray. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Symphony Nova Scotia. This is Eileen Walsh. She's clarinet and bass clarinet with the Symphony. Thanks Eileen for coming today. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
So we're talking about the clarinet. So what can you tell me, how long has that instrument been around in its present form? Let's start with that.
Well, it's still evolving. I got one with a new extra key in the last 10 years, so
Nice.
it's a baby. It's been growing keys ever since 1750. It was invented around then. So it came from a predecessor called the Chalumeau, which only had the low register.
Okay.
And then we gradually added keys bit by bit. When Mozart saw this instrument, it had 5 keys, and now it has 22.
Interesting. So is there a connection between that instrument and, let's say, the recorder that lots of people learn how to play in school?
Yeah, the Chalumeau and the recorder are cousins. The difference is in the top 3 inches, we have a reed that's vibrating against the mouthpiece. And with a recorder, the sound is created where you blow through it, and then there's something called a fipple where the magic happens.
That's the little hole.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can picture that. So register-wise, can you show me like your low register? So does this have a defined low note that you can't go past?
Yeah, so this is a B-flat clarinet. Most clarinets are transposing instruments. This comes back to when it had 5 keys and you needed 1 for every key when you changed keys. So we still do a little bit of that. The orchestral repertoire calls for B-flat, A, and C clarinets. So this is my B-flat clarinet, the most common one. And if we're talking in concert pitch, the lowest note is going to be a concert D. Below the staff in the treble clef.
Now, what about your upper register? Is there a ceiling that you can't go past, or is it just a question of it depends on the player and what kind of a shape they're in that day?
Depends on your reed. Yeah, you can go up well above the staff. You can hit the written C above the staff very easily. That is a normal intermediate range. And then you have a whole octave above that to the altissimo register C. And after that, you are just controlling squeaks.
Controlling squeaks. That's sort of any time I've tried to play the clarinet, they were uncontrolled squeaks. So you've got that floor that you can't go below. Is there a clarinet that you would pick up to go below that point?
Yeah, I play the bass clarinet for that reason.
Okay. Maybe before I ask you to switch instruments and show us that one, is there something that you'd like to play for us on this clarinet?
Sure. I'll play the character that I play in Peter and the Wolf, because that's a really common piece to hear from early childhood onwards. Yeah. It's by Prokofiev, and the clarinet plays the character of a cat creeping through the grass very quietly, looking for the birds.
Awesome. Nice. I recognize that. And I imagine lots of people watching are going to recognize that too. Okay, so the bass clarinet, yeah, that's it's big.
Yes, I'd say to the untrained eye, you would call it the clarisaxophone. And you would be right, because Adolf Sax contributed to its development.
Oh, okay, I've got questions about that. So Adolf Sax is the guy who invented the saxophone, and that's why it's called that. So how did the bass clarinet come to be, and what did it come from?
Well, it had early predecessors. There were basset horns, which were in the key of F, and those were very lovely, soft-spoken instruments that were around in the time of Mozart. This is a modern instrument. It didn't come through a development very much. There were some early versions of it. They looked like contrabassoons, but Adolf Sax turned it into an instrument that was functional and what we recognize.
So basically, this is kind of like a wooden saxophone then?
Sure.
No. No? So what's the difference between this and a sax other than the material construction?
It's the shape of the bore. The
Okay.
clarinet family have cylindrical bores. They are straight up and down. The saxophone's a conical bore. And what this changes for us is the partials that we hear. So
Okay.
where if you press a key on the saxophone with your thumb to go to the high register, it will bring you up an octave, and they call it the octave key. On a clarinet, when you press the key on the back, which we call the register key, you don't get the same note up high. You get the next partial up a fifth.
Aha.
So it's acoustically different from the saxophone and the flute and the oboe and everybody else.
Okay. Now that I see it, I'm realizing I've never looked at a bass clarinet up close before. I can definitely see it's still got its clarinet shape, except for the bell and except for the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
Cool. Can you do a similar registered demo on this as you did on the other clarinet for me? So low and high.
Yeah, I'll start in the middle because the orchestral professional bass clarinet has a lower range than some. So a regular bass clarinet would go down to a low E flat. That's like a clarinet. What I have down to a written C, low B flat.
So written C compared to where on the bass clef would that C be?
That is underneath the bass clef.
Okay.
It's actually the same note as the lowest note on the bassoon.
Okay, great. That makes sense to me. What about going upwards?
The sky is the limit. I actually can play higher on this than on the clarinet
Really?
because it is, again, controlled squeaks.
Yes.
So what I'd like to demonstrate on bass clarinet for you actually shows off both its very, very low range and its extremely high range. It's got a massive, over 5-octave range. And so people have started writing bass clarinet music that reflects that range.
Of course. Okay, so look forward to hearing that in a minute. A couple of basic questions about how clarinets are built. So your instruments, are they from like kind of a factory setting? Like brass instruments tend to come from a big factory. String instruments are, made by some craftsperson in a shop usually. Where do the clarinets, well, where do your clarinets fit into that? Like, where do you get them?
Mine are definitely the factory clarinets because I buy mine from a maker in France. I'm playing French system clarinets, as are most people in North America. It's becoming a boutique thing. People are becoming makers and craftsmen, but the majority of the instruments are the big factories in France.
So for the most part, if you're in a big enough city, you can walk into a store and buy one of these. A music store, not the grocery
You couldn't
store.
buy this, but
Okay.
you could buy one that's at an intermediate level.
Okay, the student models then would be more available, let's say.
Yeah, and they would usually be made out of a hard resin plastic.
Okay.
Instead of, this is from a tree in Africa. The sort of street name for it is granadilla wood.
Okay.
And it's a relative of rosewood, which means it's going to be endangered soon, and we'll all have to adapt.
Yep. The other clarinets, same wood? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Would you be so kind as to play that piece for us that you were talking about?
What I'd like to play is a transcription of a solo that a really well-known jazz bass clarinetist, Eric Dolphy, played in the 60s. It is his interpretation of a really standard song called God Bless the Child.
Okay. Awesome.
I wasn't going to move my page.
Thanks for that. That sounded really great. So thanks very much, Eileen. Thanks, everybody, for watching this, and we hope we'll see you at the symphony really soon.